working with masks. Masks are known by a few different names. Alpha channels is another common name for masks, or mats, MATTES. They're all basically the same thing. Alpha channels are these mysterious things that exist in this digital world, and today hopefully we'll peel away some of the mystery. Um, so fire up After Effects. Make sure you fire it up in default settings by hitting Command Option Shift, and we'll set up a new project. But first I'm going to minimize, and there's a folder on the shared swap called Lesson 7. So find that Lesson 7 folder, and of course remember we're going to change the name to BRTF 1265, and we'll call it L7, and of course attach a name to it. Again, when you're doing your master folders, this is what I expect you to do. And there is another project that is coming on to you this week as well, so make sure you're following the workflow. And again, I'll revisit the workflow. Inside that master folder, there's subfolders. Assets. Assets is a folder that's going to contain any media files that you're planning on using. You put them in here first, and then you import them into After Effects. End project file, this is where multiple versions of that AEP file are working AEP files, and you should have multiple versions because you should be saving often. And then there's finished project, and finished project currently has nothing in it, but when you're done, this is where the final version of that AEP file is going to sit. And then of course when you render out that final version of that AEP file, it should sit in this folder called Sample Movie. So that is the proper workflow. Make sure you're doing that when you're handing your projects into me, because I am taking marks off. It's about 30% of your mark if you're not following proper workflow protocol. So why would you throw away easy marks? Makes no sense. So please don't. Okay, so now we've got our workflow is sitting there, and of course now we want to kind of start setting up our project. So we'll go back to After Effects, and first thing I'm going to do is establish my AEP file. So I'm going to go File, Save As, and then of course I want to make sure it's going to the right folder, and I want to give it a name because Untitled is not a good name. So navigate to my desktop, and I need to find that folder that I have created for today's assignment. There it is. And of course I want to go into the end project file, and what I want to do here is I'm going to basically now call it what it should be, L7, and I'm going to call it V1, and I'm making sure it goes in that end project file, and that should now get my initial AEP file set up. Also again, I'm going to go to After Effects, and I'm going to go to Preferences, and what I want to do is I want to go to my autosave, because when you start up in default settings, it's going to reset it to 20 minutes, and you want to change that to 5 minutes, because that's, you know, you can do a lot of damage in 5 minutes, and you can do 5 times the amount of damage in 20 minutes if you're, you know, well actually 4 if you're good at math. Hopefully you're paying attention to that. But you can do so much damage if you're not saving often. So I'd suggest you save that, have that saving for you every 5 minutes. So basically now we have our initial project set up. So we'll go to this project panel. And again, the shortcut is you can double click in there and then navigate to wherever your folder is. There's my folder, and there's my assets. I'm only going to use 2 assets, to be honest with you. I'm going to use this news promo file here, and then I'm also going to use this Office Mask Movie. But you know what, let's do them separately, because sometimes it's interesting when you import these things separately. Even though they're movie files and they're flat, you can see that there is settings here, and its footage is what it is. We'll start with that Office Mask Movie first. And, you know, sometimes bringing them in individually sometimes can help you just kind of make sure there's nothing else in there that could be an issue or problematic. So there's the Office Movie file. And what we want to do now is we want to take this Office Movie file, and we're going to use it as the basis for our project. And it is going to be the file that is going to basically establish um, the whole composition. And you can see if we take that file and drag it in there, a new uh, composition appears, and that composition is basically based on that movie file. And if you go ahead and play it, you'll see it is just a movie file. And if you want more information about it, again, there's two things you can do. You can hit the tilde key and expand that file so you can see 29:97 frame rate, tells you how long it is, tells you the dimensions, standard depth video. And then also, because we created this composition, what we can do is we can also now go to composition and composition settings, and you can see now where we've got everything that movie file was used to basically determine how long this composition is, and also the dimensions of this composition. So it's NTSC DV720 by 480, 2997 drop frame, time code, and of course the duration is 5 seconds in 1 frames. And there's nothing there that we need to worry about or change right now. So we're just gonna hit OK on that. Now sometimes if you have these issues where you create a composition on a movie file, remember, because the composition doesn't have a file path, right? See how this movie file has a file path because we imported it from that assets folder in our master folder. But because the composition doesn't, right, you can change the name of that composition. So if you want to change the name of that composition, it's easy enough to do that in your composition settings. And what I can do here is I can call this my office master. So that way, it's not really changing anything else other than it's just changing the name, and nothing's going to go offline because it's the composition that I changed the name of. So, that gives you an idea of what you can mess with and what you shouldn't mess with when you're, changing names of things. Because up in here, if there's a file path, you can't change the name up in here. Down here, because this isn't really the same as this project panel, that's basically just a copy of what's ever in there. So literally down here, you can change the names of those things, because if you change it from source name here to layer name, that's just like changing the layer names in Photoshop. So, I mean, really isn't going to cause you any grief down here. Again, be careful. That's why you want to save often, because anytime you make any changes, the first thing I'm going to do now that I've made all these changes is I'm going to go File, Save As, and I'm going to call this version 2. And you might think that's kind of ridiculous, but I'm telling you, if you get into the habit of doing this stuff, it's going to save you an incredible amount of grief. When you start getting problems and you have to figure out where things went wrong, well, having those multiple versions, you can just go back to the last version. And if you want to, just start back from there. It's better than starting all the way back at step 0. But again, I'll let you make that decision. I'm not you. I do things the way I do it because it's been proven as a method of getting your work done. Because this program is going to cause grief. I guarantee you. That's what it does.